have here one presentation about the citrus production and a parallel between greening and CVC, our citrus belt, the greening occurrence in Brazil, the HLB management, and some conclusions. I am Italian family. It's difficult to be speaking and don't walk. Wait a minute. And this is how we can produce citrus. We have inputs, labor, machines, fertilizers, everything. We have the environmental conditions, and output is oranges or lemons or tangerines. We have to do correct management of labor, machines, fertilizers in a sustainable way. And we have, our goal is solids with low costs per box. It's our goal. A lot of things change in citrus production in the last 20 years in Brazil. 20 years ago, I think we have about 200 plants per hectare. It's a very, very high space between trees. Normally, we planted 20 years ago 80 meters between rows, plus 6 meters between trees. 20 years ago. Nowadays, we changed the rootstock, and the normal space is 6 meters between rows, plus 2 or 2.5 meters between trees. We increased it from 200 plants per hectare to 600 plants per hectare. Why? Because we have pressure of a lot of diseases, beginning with CVC, and after that greening, and we use more irrigation. And then we increase the density of the plants, and we start pruning with mechanical machines. In the past, maybe we start pruning with 8 years old, one orchard, and nowadays we start pruning maybe in the 5 years, before you planted the orchard. In the past, 20 years ago, we produced about 20 tons of oranges per hectare. It's very, very high production in terms of boxes per tree, but small production in terms of box per hectare, per area. Nowadays, we can produce only 1.5 or 1.8 box per plant, but if I have 600 plants per hectare, we can produce 1,000 boxes per hectare. It's much more easy to produce 1.5 box per plant than 5 box per plant. It's more easy to harvest one small plant, like 2.5 meters, than a big plant with a lot of spaces to grow. It's difficult to harvest too. We maintain the plants, high density of plants, small plants, using lateral and topping pruning. You can see here an orchard with 4 years old. You can see here, they are pruned. It's a very, very light pruning. We normally could cut branches like this, very, very, very light pruning. It's not a heavy pruning, because when you have to do a heavy pruning, you lose a lot of fruits, and you have a lot of new branches, and then you have no space. When you start to cut with 3 or 4 years old, a very light pruning, you can maintain low production and high productions, and the correct space to do sprayers and other things. In mature trees, normally we pruning every year. This is other change. In the past, we planted in curves. And nowadays we are planting, of course, if you have an inclination like that, you're planting in straight lines against the water. You can see that. We are planting, it's much more easy to harvest, to weed control, and everything. And we have 2 difficult diseases in our history in citrus production in Brazil. The first one is called the CVC. It's a bacteria that blockades the xylem of the plant, And greening, it's a bacteria too, but blockades the phloem of the plant. And they have two different vectors. CVC, it's a sharpshooter vector, and greening, it's a psylla, it's a Diaphorina citri, the name of the vector. But we have a lot of experience with CVC when greening appeared. And to us, it's not so bad to remove plants, to control the vector, because we do that since we start to control CVC. CVC appeared in Brazil in 1987. This is the symptom. The bacteria blockade the xylem. The fruit is very small. But CVC, it's much more easy disease comparative with greening. But when the greening appeared in 2004, we have a lot of experience with CVC. And like I told you, it's more easy to us to control the disease because we have experience with CVC. This is the CVC symptom here. In 1993, the cock postulate has been closed, and the infected plant, we start to make eradications of infected plants at that time. And in 2004, the greening appeared. This is the greening symptom in the leaves. It's another disease. Again, we have another vector called Diaphorina citri. It's a psylla, and it is a fruit. Normally, the infected fruit drops to the soil. When you cut the fruit, you can see the aborted seed inside the fruit. When you press a young fruit and they become silver, this is a symptom of greening. The production is very, very low. In both diseases, the pruning of the infected branch don't do anything because it's a vascular problem. When you cut one branch, infected branch, the bacteria are in the root system, and you don't have any kind of control of this disease, only with pruning. We try, when I have one big plant with only one small branch like that, 20 centimeters with the disease, we try to cut the entire branch in the bases, and the greening we have explosion of the disease in the plant because the diseases are in entire plant, unfortunately. And then we have a lot of federal laws there. The first one is 2005, another one 2006, another one 2008, to try to reduce the infection, because the growers don't like to remove plants because they sell fruit. The law told to the people, you need to remove the infected plants, but the growers don't like to remove plants. It's difficult to do that. And then we have a lot of laws, a lot of federal laws, but only medium and large growers doing a correct job. Normally, a lot of mediums and small growers don't remove plants, and then the infection becomes very high. In 2009, Fundecitrus, it's a private cooperative system there, stopped to make inspection. In 2011, we have São Paulo state law. It's mandatory for field inspections and 2 writing H.L.B incidents report per year in January and July. In practical, the people need to report the government how many plants they are removing per year. But it's like it's not it's only a report, but the people don't remove plants more. They try to maintain plants inside the orchard, because in Florida they stopped to remove greening plants, and it started in 2009 and 10 a nutritional packet against this disease. But this nutrition packet don't work very well, and the production in Florida comes down. Big companies or big orchards, for example, an orchard like I worked there, we have about 5,000 hectares with citrus. In these 5,000 hectares, we control the vector, we remove plants, and we could maintain low rates of greening. Our neighbors, which decided to maintain infected plants inside the farm, they are now sugarcane plantation there. More than 50,000 hectares of neighbors are removed, not because the federal law or the state law, it's because the decrease of the yields. It's not by law. The people, when you have greening, the yields comes from 1,000 boxes to 800,000, 600,000, 400,000, 200,000, and then it's anti-economic to maintain the orchard. In 2004, we started a system to make inspections by tractor like that. One tractor with 2 people. For small plants, we make inspections, walking, and for big orchard like that, we have a platform with 4 people. Normally, it's important to do 6 to 8 inspections per year and remove the infected plant in the beginning of the process. If you have more than 5% in only one inspection, it's impossible to control this disease because the infection rate is so high. 5% of infected plants. And this is our citrus belt in oranges. It's see here in orange, all blocks we have citrus. The evolution of the infection or blocks with greening becomes here in 2004, and then in 2007, it's about 13%. In 2010, 42, 2011, 53% of infected blocks, not plants. Nowadays, we have in our state, after 14 years of efforts of the government and private companies and growers, about 20% of infected plants in our state. It's a lot. You can see here the greening appear in the center of the state in a city called Araraquara. This is in 2008, and I have here the explosion of the disease, 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2011. And nowadays, in 2018, in the last inspection is 2017, we have about 20% of infected plants. And it's possible to do the management of disease? Yes, we can do that. And I would like to show how we can maintain low rates of this disease, or we can change the citriculture for a new citriculture with more profitable and with greening under control. And we have 3 steps to do that. The first one is health seedlings. It's important to do 100% of the young plants inside a greenhouse, because if you have a correctly screened, the psylla don't go from the outside to inside, and then you don't have infection. 100% of the young plants in São Paulo State and in Brazil are produced in greenhouses. This is the first step to change, because it's important to have mother plants without the infection and produce all young plants inside the greenhouse. And it's the first step. The second one, when the plant comes to the field, we need to have vector control. How we can control? We have a lot of ways. For example, in Rhizoma's company, we only use biological control. And we have Bovéria balsiana, we have Isaria, we have neem oil. We need to spray every week the border, and every 15 days the orchard with this biological control. Of course, you have in the market other products you can use too, insecticides in this control. When we have a new flushes, we have much more psylla, but unfortunately, 65% of the psylla in our state are infected by the disease, and then you need to maintain low rates of insect inside the orchard. because the insect moves in very long distance, and then you need to have a protection. 85 or 9% of the insects comes from the border, and he stays in the border 1 week. This is the main reason why we control this with this biological system every week in the border area, because you can kill the 9% of the insect they are coming outside. And make inspection and prompt eradication of plants. Normally 4 to 6 inspections per year, and then when you find an infected plant, you need to remove that. It's a very old system called hogging, using in several diseases in agriculture. You need to remove the infected plants, and then you can maintain bacillus without the bacteria. These three ways to control this disease. This is a big greenhouse in São Paulo. We can produce here 1 million plants per year. But you can do that inside the farm with a small producer too. It's the same concept. And here we have the mother plants and irrigation or not, or you can do that manually. You need to produce the citrus in plastic bags. Under protection, you can see here the screen. When we have the screen, the insect don't come. They can't go inside the greenhouse. And then we can produce a very beautiful citrus trees. I forgot to say, in biological control we have a natural enemy too. We have labs in São Paulo that produce one insect called Tamarixia radiata, and we can introduce in the orchard that biological control too, with 80% or 85% of diaphorina citric control. This Tamarixia is so important too, this biological control. And we have these yellow traps. We look every week these yellow traps to see if we have the bacilla, and then we make a control. You can see here one study that shows us the insect comes normally in the border, the beginning of the block. And this is the inspection, what we do, the inspection. These platforms here, we can do that together. If we have small farmers, we can have together efforts to do this job. If one neighbor don't do the correct job, if they maintain infection there, it's difficult to another neighbor do a correct job. Mainly when we have small blocks, because all small blocks less than 50 hectares, it looks like a border area because it's so small. And then if you don't do a cooperative system to control this disease, it's impossible to have a very good control, because if you do the control here, the neighbor don't do, and then the infected insect comes from this neighbor to our orchard and then make the infection. It's difficult, it's not an easy task. In all countries that disease appear, the citrus production comes down very fast. In São Paulo State, we have a lot of success cases in this disease control. And another thing, if you have an infected plant, for example, if you make the first inspection and you have 15% or 30% of the plants are infected, in this situation, you need to become to vector control too, because you have the first infection and the secondary infection. And then if you don't do a vector control, the disease, the second infection will occur a lot, and then you could not maintain high yields. If you have a lot of infections, for example, you must be controlling the insect, the vector, to reduce the secondary infection. It's so important too. This is the normally distribution of costs in our country. You can see here the green management costs about 9% in areas with high infections and 6% in areas with low infection. It's not a cost problem, the greening control. It's a concept problem there. It's not related, I can do that because it's so high cost. No, it's only 10% of the cost. You can't do that in Brazilian conditions if we started with low infections. Okay, our conclusions after 14 years in terms of greening management, we can affirm it's possible and successful. The pillars of this management are the use of healthy young plants from protected greenhouse. The second one, it's the prompt correctly management inside the block with low infections, mainly less than 5% per year per adult blocks and less than 0.5% for young blocks. The monitoring and the vector control, the inspections with platforms and fast eradication. For example, in this farm that I worked, we make the eradication the same day we found one infected plant. We have a big machine and then we cut the plant in less than 5 minutes. The small and medium growers only have HLB success if they working together. It's not a problem of only one grower. It must be a cooperative system to do a correct job. It's my message, and now I open for questions. Thank you very much. Have any questions? It's a difficult disease. It's not easy. Sorry, but we can do a good job. It's necessary technological system and a lot of work, but we can win.
Can you give a bit more information of the use of the Bavaria in your system? Like how much was your rate and what would be the time lapse for it to be effective compared to if somebody would want to use more of a synthetic product for like a fast control?
Okay, the question is about the Bavaria use. We use normally 2 kilograms of Bavaria per hectare. It's a Bavaria Balsiana. But we need to have much more products than Bavaria. Bavaria efficiency, it's about 80%. And the insecticide, in the regular one, it's about 85–90%. It's very close. We have now a new product in our country. The name is Isaria. It's very important. I can share after the correct name, but Isaria. Isaria is about biological control too. It's about 85% of control. And in neem oil, we can use neem oil too. And I think it's that three main products we have. When you have new flushes, I release these tamarix in the orchard.
You mentioned the legislation. We are traditionally an English country. An English legislation was never developed to be penal, because the concept was that the legislation is supposed to be a guide. We've seen over the years we have had to make legislation that is penal. I am a little bit anti that because I don't believe that we need to whip or force people necessarily into compliance by virtue of a law, but by virtue of education and knowledge so they do the right thing. What was your success rate in Brazil with the legislation that you said started in 2005 and moved up to 2011? Did people comply or did they have to have penalties? How did it work?
Yes, we started to do this job with support of this Fundecitrus. It's a private organization. Fundecitrus making the inspection, and then they make a notification for the growers to remove plants. But in some cases, the growers don't do the correct job. They don't do the remotion, and it's difficult for the government to make inspections for everyone. and then the law are changing to make adaptation for this situation. But in our conditions, the law don't do anything in terms of this greening control. But a lot of growers which decide to don't follow the law, they are out of the business because the infection. It's not by the law.
I'll follow up with, here in Belize we have two situations. There is the CGA, the scientists there who promote the concept of spraying, etc., etc. Then there's another group of large farmers who promote the concept of crop management and nutrition, etc., etc. And there's almost an opposition one way or another, which puts the ministry in a bit of the middle. I heard you mention that nutritional management is not necessarily the answer, but you do have to remove the trees, and you do have to control the vector. What is the experience in Brazil with farmers who have employed a nutritional approach?
Nutritional approach, it's interesting to nutrition. When you have a better nutritional, the plant could be more productive. And then in some cases we have an orchard with a lot of greening, and when we started to apply nutritional packet, they could be better. They have more leaves, more production, but it could not maintain the low rates of this disease, because in some cases the people started to do this nutritional program and stopped to control the vector. I think it's important, independent of the two ways you have, nutritional or removing plants. You can remove plants only if you have low rates of infection. If you have more than 5% of infection in one orchard, it's impossible to change the situation with remotion, infected plants, etc. And then I think it's better to have a middle packet with nutritional plus vector control, because the vector control is so important for the secondary infection. Of course, I believe, in my experience, with maybe 15 years of experience with this disease nowadays, it's important to remove plants when you start in the beginning. But a lot of growers, when they make the first inspection, they have a very high level, and it's impossible to remove plants more than 5%. Understand? It's difficult. In some cases, I think it's important for new growers, for new orchards, you have a cooperative system to do that together with health plants, with a very intensive vector control program, and then remotion. But if you have a very closed orchard, the infected one, with a new block besides them, it's difficult to maintain low rates too. It's difficult. It's not an easy task. And I don't know if I answered the question. It's difficult. And we have some places the infection it's not equal in our country. We have some places, for example, in the center of the state, with much more pressure than in the north part of the state. We don't know why. They have the insect, but the infection rate there is low. I think the important thing, the first important thing is make a sample of these insects in Belize and know how many insects are infected now. If you have 60% of infection in the entire region, you need to have much more vector control, then you have low rates of infection. But the nutritional packet plus pruning plus very good soil nutritional. I told yesterday for a lot of guys here, the boron application in the soil, when you apply boron with a herbicide bar or 1 bar with water, it's necessary the boron application twice a year, The doses, it's about 1 kilogram of boron per hectare per time. It means about 5 kilograms of boric acid per hectare, twice a year. It's so important. And the zinc application in foliar spray, the manganese application, the copper application, and the balance of the phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium in the soil are so important too. When you have a good nutritional, you can maintain good yields when you do vector control and pruning, etc., included with greening. But for young plants, it's important to maintain zero rates until 4 or 5 years old. I think for the new plantations, it's important to remove infected plants until until 5 years old, because you can maintain low rates and then you can start a nutritional program, etc. But when you have infection with 1 or 2 years old orchard, it's impossible to have a good yields. Okay?
Have you looked at any of the research to build up the immunity that's been used to build up the immunity of plants to diseases? For instance, there's very good data out there using silica. Plants naturally use silica as a defense. And have you tried that? And particularly things like salicylic acids. And another one that has been used is chitin. Chitin is the shell, basically what the exoskeleton of insects are. And there's been quite a lot of good studies showing that spraying plants with chitin, in this case they usually use it from shrimp shells, the same thing. That stimulates the plant's defense against insects.
Yes. We have several studies in Brazil, in São Paulo State, by Fundecitrus, using these different nutritional packets. And like I told you, it's increased the yield, could maintain production, but only for old plants. For young plants, it's much more difficult because the young plant infection blockades the phloem, and it's difficult to do the correct job. But I think it's a good thing to study.
The other one is, I've talked, with different countries about it. The citrus screening is typical everywhere. My country's got places in the world at the moment without citrus screening. It's only a matter of time before we get it. The citrus screening is pretty well global, and Australia is at the moment the only country that's free of it. Australia and New Zealand, I think even New Zealand's got it now, and it's only a matter of time before we get it. But when I've looked at orchards around the world, you'll always find some plants, even ones where 90% of the plants are devastated, you find plants that are free of it. And I'm wondering if there's been a collection of these plants to actually select cultivars that are resistant. And for instance, in grapes, with phylloxera, which is a devastating disease of grapes. Now, for years, everybody looked at cultural controls, but in the end, some of our researchers in Australia realised that there were vines that were not affected, so did a collection of them, grew them out in a research station. And then not all of them, of course, are resistant. There's other reasons. But amongst that collection, you end up getting some that are resistant, and then propagate them out, and now phylloxera is not an issue. And I was wondering, has anyone done that? Because in the end, that is the most important control, is to select resistant varieties and propagate them. And that's the long-term control, and that's going to save huge costs of management.
Yes, I completely agree. I think in the future, when we have resistant plants, we can use. But nowadays we don't have these resistant plants in our country, unfortunately. More questions?
I think before all these insects and the predatory wasps and things were so recognized, like in Vietnam, I believe, and where they were having extensive plantings of guava, and like they would have almost 50% guava, 50% citrus, and then the guava, something, I don't remember the chemical in the leaf, that was a deterrent for the vector, for the ACP. So I wondered, did you ever use that program in Brazil? And what do you think of that, planting the guava with the citrus?
Okay, thank you. This is interesting, the past, but plants of these blocks are infected by greening. They have some gases against the vector in the beginning, but in 2 or 3 years, all plants are infected. We tried to do that in Brazil too, and unfortunately we don't have a very good success with this method. We're using guava and citrus.
Do you ever have to use synthetic products in your program, or is it all biological control?
In our program,
Do you ever have instances where the populations of the psyllid get out of control that you have to employ synthetic materials?
I have a lot of experience in the past using these regular insecticides, and we have several products we can use. So they have registration in our country to psyllid control. But in our company, it's a regenerative organic company, and then we use only the biological control there, and with very, very good control. I'm trying the last 10 months to find a psylla inside the orchard, and I never found. But it's difficult because when one insect, with 65% of infection we have, when insect comes from outside and he can make infections, and until we kill with this biological system, or with Tamarix start to do the job. But we are maintaining low rates of greening, but our orchard, they have less than 1 year.
So
Probably more than 3 or 4 years I can come again here and share more experiences in lemon, because we choose lemon in an organic way, not because greening, it's because the leprosis mites. Because in a biological control, in our country, the leprosis mite for oranges, it's so difficult. It's not an easy task for us to control leprosis mite.
It's the same problem I was bringing that up. You touch on it. We have just beginning, I think, but it's becoming more prominent. Thank you. Good morning. We have a problem, other problem, which is leprosis showing up as well as the greening now. And so that would be a question that we would need to get some answer from on as to how to manage in that environment. How best to handle that, because we have the same problem that there is not enough attention paid on how to control the process, and then now we have greening, and so we are all part of it.
Comparative leprosis and greening, for me leprosis is like a flu, and greening is like a cancer. Leprosis control, why? Because leprosis are transmitted, it's a virus transmitted by one mite, the leprosis mite, and it's a disease, localized disease, only in the branches and fruits, etc. If you kill the insect, the mite, using miticides, you can maintain low rates of this infection. But normally, the growers mistake the correctly timing of the mite control. You need to have the mite control with the fruit is very, very small, like this size, 5 centimeters or something like that. This is the main point of control. In some cases, when you saw the disease, the process damage, they occur 3 or 4 months before you are seeing the mites. And for our conditions, we need to have a spray when we have a small fruit like that. And another very important control to us is to pruning, because you can control the mite inside the plant. For example, normally you use for psylla control 1,000 liters of spray per hectare of water. When you use for leprosis mite, we apply 2,000 liters per hectare, because we need to have a spray inside the plant, not outside only. Psylla, you look like outside spray, and leprosis mite you need to do internal control inside the plant. But leprosis mite, it's very, very, very easy in our conditions to maintain low rates. Of course, nowadays we have only 2 products there to control the leprosis, because our federal government, they have we need a lot of time to make a registration of one mite site. It's about the average 80 years to make a registration. It's so long. More question?
Is in Brazil any important experience of citrus production as part of an agroforestry system, not just as a monocrop, but associated with many other trees? Is any experience in...
Thank you, Albert. Yes, in our company we are doing this experience. Okay. We are trying to make this agroforest project. We planted 600 plants of lemon per hectare, and we plant some eucalyptus and bananas and grass. And we can have a very high level of organic matter in the line, about 3 or 4% of organic matter in the line, cutting the grass 4 or 6 times per year, and without herbicides, using this coverage. I think it's a good experience, but our block, we have 50 hectares, the first one, under irrigation and to produce lemon in this agroforest model.
And any observation about breeding and about diseases in those plots compared to the other ones?
Not yet, because the orchards are so young. We are starting to. But the good news is we are controlling the psylla incidence using this biological control.
I just wanted to know what the difference is for
Sorry? Mite site, yeah.
Yeah, what's the tool that you're using in conservation?
I can.
What's the tool, you said you want to use?
Only 2 chemicals. I can take for you. Because in our company we don't use that mite site. I can share after. Yeah. More questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you were saying that, I think I heard you say that you recommend pruning at 4 years of age plants, citrus plants. Okay, we do a lot of, where I work, we do a lot of pruning. We prune every year. But we do it periodically, we do like one side of the row to help with production. You don't want to cut everything at the same time because they're mature trees. So we do one side, and then the following year you do the other side, and then top. So it's a 3-year cycle. You do one side, the serve, and then. My thing is this though, with pruning, in your experience, do you think that disperses the psyllid more? Because we have some blocks that are almost clean, and then some that are infected. So dispersing the psyllid by pruning mechanically. Have you seen that happen?
Yeah. Good question. Okay, it's a pleasure. A good question. It's the pruning could increase the greening rates. Every time we prune, we have a new flush. And this new flush becomes to be protected. If I don't do a corrective protection with using biological products or regular products, etc., you can have more infection. Because when you prune it, normally one citrus plant have 3 or 4 flushes per year. When you prune it, you have another flush, and that new flush must be protected too. If I don't do the correct protection, we have more infection. It's possible. But the pruning don't pass it greening for a half plant for not half plant. No, only the vector would make the transmission of the disease. The pruning it's only a factor. We have a new flush, and you have. If you must protect this flush, no, the pruning could not increase the greening rates. Okay.
What we have here for a season, it was the cost of that season.
The cost of a young plant?
Yeah.
What season?
Mambuta.
See,
Sorry,
uncertified. I think it's the last one we bought. We paid R$7. It's about $3. No, it's less than $2. $2.50. $2.50. Every time the growers, the greenhouse growers increase the price, the growers decided to do a greenhouse, and then the price comes down.
What about the weed control?
Mhm.
How do you manage weed control?
In
Is
our
it still with a natural product?
in our company, we only use rotary cutters, and then we cut the grass and put this cutter in this grass in the line, and then we remove weeds using manual equipment. But in other orchards, you can use herbicides in the line and water cutters. It's my PhD thesis. I do that. I studied that 7 years, because when I started to work in 1991, the growers said to us, it's impossible to have a good production without disc harrow. And I proved it. If you don't use disc harrow, using rotary cutters, you can have the same production. But the disc harrow don't decrease the production too, unfortunately. Because it's much more exposure for erosion in using disc harrow. Nowadays, normally we apply the rotary cutters 4 to 6 times per year, and herbicides 2 or 3 times. But in our company, we only use rotary cutters 6 times per year. And for nutrition, we supply micronutrients 4 or 5 times per year. It's so important. Zinc, manganese, copper, and boron in the soil. It's interesting. You could apply boron in the leaves several times, but when you apply once by a bar with water, 200 liters of water per hectare, and 5 kilograms of boric acid per hectare, you can see the new flushes for young plants or adult plants. It's unbelievable. Because when you have boron deficiency, one branch flush is like that one. One branch is like 5 branches. When you apply boron, one branch have only one flush, very, very big. And the production, the yield in the next year, it's much higher. The boron application is so cheap, but the main areas I have visited in my life, the people don't use micronutrients. Micronutrients is so low cost and the people don't use. In sugarcane, for example, in sugarcane 80, 90 or 90, 95% of the samples are, they have micronutrients deficiency. It's the same in citrus and corn, soybeans. The micronutrient supply is so low and so cheap. I don't know why the people don't use micronutrients in good rates.
But the application, is it done by water or with your regular area material spray?
For zinc, manganese, and copper, we apply with sprayers by tractor, using 1,000 liters per hectare. And we use normally zinc, it's about 6 to 80 kilograms of zinc sulfate per hectare, and 4 or 5 kilograms of manganese sulfate per hectare. In copper, it's about 2 kilograms with 50% of copper per hectare, and boric acid. And then you have a very good supply of micronutrients. It's so important.
You're talking about micronutrients. Do you do leaf sampling so that you know what the plant requires?
Yes. Once a year, when we have a fruit like this size, we collect the third or fourth pair of leaves, and then we go to the sample. The rates of zinc and manganese, and we need to have more than 80 ppm of zinc and manganese in the leaves. Boron more than 50 ppms, and copper more than 30 ppms. But the people don't apply. I don't know why. In every part of the world, the people don't like to apply micronutrients. Apply a lot of nitrogen, a lot of phosphorus, a lot of potassium, but in 1850, one guy showed us if you don't have sufficient amount of zinc, our production will be limited by zinc, not for another thing.
You've done these analyses twice a year.
Twice a year? Yeah.
And the only issue we have is that we can't find where we're getting so much iron from. Iron is like
Iron.
Yeah.
The iron, it's normally we don't apply because the soil.
We don't apply iron.
But you have a very high, yes. Iron normally for this tropical soil is so high. We don't sample or making in the lab iron analysis because it's not a problem for us too. But it's not toxic too, the iron.
In our case, we do have iron-induced fluorosis. So iron is an issue.
Iron in high level? High level. It's not a problem.
There are increased rollout as well.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Okay. More question?
Usually, if they're saying they've got high levels of iron, usually use calcium to counteract iron. If you increase your calcium, you'll lock up iron.
Okay.
That's a standard practice.
They reduce. Okay. Okay.
The other one, I just want to say what talking about micronutrients is just so important, and particularly in the tropics, boron in high rainfall areas. You know, boron just makes a difference, and that's something that you have to apply every year. And with citrus, it's a phenomenal difference by putting boron in for fruit quality in terms of making those fruits juicy and strong. I can't agree with you enough on this, how important. And then zinc and manganese.
Yeah. In boron, applying the soil with a bar, with water, 200 liters of water and 1 or 1.5 meters in the range. It's good. If you do that and you have a good flushes, more production, you remember me, Fernando Tersi.
Just to explain, can I get the mic? Just to explain how boron works is, sorry.
What I want to say, what he's saying is so important, but this applies to every crop in a high rainfall area, anywhere in the world, in every climate, because boron gets leached out. Basically, boron works with calcium. Now, one of the roles of calcium, it actually is the, best way to say is the trucker of all the other nutrients. It moves nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all the trace elements. Its role is to transport them around the plant. Now, for calcium to do that, it needs boron. And it's not much, like you're saying, 5 kilograms of borax a hectare. You really don't want to do much more than that either, because it makes a very good herbicide. It kills plants if you put too much in. But by having that amount of boron, that now allows the calcium to do its job. And so, just by putting the boron on, what you're doing is correcting, how do you say, major sub-deficiencies of micronutrients. It doesn't matter how many of these micronutrients you have in the soil and what level, if you don't have the boron, the plant can't use it efficiently. So what you're doing is limiting the genetic potential. And that is why, just by getting the boron levels up, you're talking about, you can see the difference in the shoots. It's unbelievable. But the fruit quality, which is our bottom line, the difference in that is incredible as well. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more on how important what you're saying is.
And only one important thing to complementary, Andrea, is don't apply boron in the solid light, like solids in the hole, because it's a very, very toxic to the young plants. You can kill young plants. You need to apply in a range with water, and then you could have a very good supply without toxicity problem. Okay? Okay. Thank you very much.